If you're like me, payroll, benefits, and compliance will give you a headache unless you've got Deal. Deal PEO makes hiring in the U.S. simple. And right now, just for being a You Should Know podcast listener, you can get up to 3 months free at deal.com/work-defined. That's DEEL.com/WRK defined.
Hey, it's William Tincup and Ryan Leary. We are joined by Melissa Lay and Caitlin McGregor. We have a special use case podcast, right?
We do. This is going to be a different one for us.
This is outside of the last, I don't know, probably 280 of these that we've done. We've never actually had a practitioner on at the same time of having a founder. So it's usually just a founder talking, which is great. It's cool content. Now we actually get to talk to somebody who's been on the other side of it, who's bought it, implemented it, etc. So, Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then Caitlin.
Great. I love being a pioneer, so this is wonderful. Melissa Lay. I lead talent acquisition for Advocate Health. I've been in the industry for about 11 years, and I was consulting for 13 years prior to that in various industries and organizations, but love the technology and this use case, and I love that I get to partner with Caitlin on the regular.
And Caitlin?
I'm Caitlin McGregor. I'm CEO and co-founder of Plum, and we are a psychometric assessment platform. So those durable skills like innovation, communication, execution, we measure them for all candidates and employees and help match them to jobs that are going to make them happy, fulfilled, and thrive.
Yeah. So, Melissa, why don't you kick us off here? We're going to talk technology. So, Caitlin, I know you're going to give us the rundown here, but Melissa, what was the challenge that you were trying to solve? What was the problem you were facing when you started to look around?
Certainly. I'll start a little bit with our organization. So we are the third largest nonprofit health system in the nation, and we have a footprint in Illinois under the name Advocate Health, footprint in North Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama under the name Atrium Health. And then we're also known as Aurora Healthcare in Wisconsin. And we employ 160,000 teammates across 69 hospitals and have over 1,000 care locations. So very large organization. Brand is well recognized. But we knew as an organization, we can't always expect candidates to come to us. There was an opportunity for us to look at how we redefine care in some particular markets, specifically one that was in Chicago, where the life expectancy of the community was 30 years less than the national average.
Wow.
South side.
We can't just let 30 years go past. 30 years less than the average.
South side of Chicago. It's a war zone.
South side, yeah. Right. That's where crazy. We have, it is crazy. We have a main hospital right there under the name Trinity, right in the community. And when you hear that, you're like, what do we do? How do we help the community? We knew that there was something special that we needed to launch. We couldn't just sit by idle and let the community suffer in that manner. And so we actually pulled together a team. And we gave it a fancy name, a little pseudo name of Project Equinox. And it was a very hush-hush, like, let's kind of put our heads together from a business development perspective, an HR component. Let's pull in foundations and government affairs and just let's see what we can do to advocate for the community, because we're not walking away from this community. We've got to do something different to make sure that these individuals have a healthy lifestyle. And we kind of break down those social determinants of health.
Yeah. Preventative healthcare is in a lot of those areas. If just to get a little small dose, it doesn't even have to be kind of the max preventative, but preventative care, because so much of what you're doing in low income neighborhoods is they have to do everything reactive as it relates to healthcare. Something happened, and then they went to the hospital.
Right. It's usually a mistrust of the system, which totally fair, right?
100%.
100%. And so we knew that, we need to increase the number of providers. We need to do something different when it comes to care. And so we're looking at different ways of bringing care to the community, like setting up care shops at a YMCA or at a place where, a community center where they typically frequent. We have talked to different mega churches just to see how can we deliver care to the community there. And so really wanted to make sure that we were taking care of the community. But one of the social determinants of health is not just your health, but it's your mental health. And when you think about your mental health and well-being, it's financial security, job security. And so we knew that there needed to be this human component attached to all of our strategies. It couldn't just be, we're bringing in more doctors and we're going to deliver better care.
That's cool.
I mean,
I love looking at patient satisfaction and at the same time looking at patient satisfaction outside of a kind of regional economics viewpoint and saying, okay, how can we actually help the region at the same time of increasing patient care? Like you're looking at a different metric, which is really, really cool. How did you and Caitlin meet?
Caitlin and I met probably close to a year before we even engaged in a contract and a launch. Caitlin, remind me, I think it was Napa where we were.
Yeah, it's about a year and a half. So 2 years this fall will be the 2 years since that event.
It was an event run by CXR. So CXR is a community for talent acquisition professionals to come together and talk about our real problems, our problems as an organization. What are we trying to do to solve those? Really relying on each other's expertise to kind of break down some of those barriers and help each other, increase or solve. I don't want to say increase candidate supply, but really solve some of the problems that we have from a talent attraction and acquisition perspective.
It's one of the go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just saying we love CXR and everything that they do. Jerry and team's been doing this for eons, right? And we just recently had Jerry on a show.
Yeah.
We were at Recruiting Innovation Summit. Was that where we were with Jerry?
We were with Erie's event. It's hard not to love it. It's absolutely hard not to love him.
It is.
So
we were at, I think it was that same conference. I won. We play this game called What the Duck.
Yes.
And it's a fun but kind of crazy game. And our table won, and I came home with the What the Duck hat. I should have put it on for today. It's hilarious, but so it's a lot of business, but we also know how to play hard at those events. And Caitlin was there presenting her technology with another use case in another organization, actually.
And so that began the conversation, I guess, friendship, and then kind of gets into, hey, this is what we do. What was y'all's first after post-event conferences? What were those conversations like?
It was kind of funny. I think as Caitlin was wrapping up her presentation, we were all hustling. We got to get to the airport. Everybody's getting home. We're getting on the transportation bus. And as we were walking out, I said, Caitlin, love your technology. I think this would be really great to support our university relations and early careers. How many students start college not knowing what they want to be, where they're going to go. I think this would be a great technology to kind of leverage in that healthcare space, just to make sure that people don't go through school saying, I'm going to be a doctor or a nurse, because that's all they can think of when they get into healthcare. We have so many other career tracks that this might be a really cool technology to say, is it surgical technology? Is it imaging? Is it therapy? What am I going to do with my career? And let's help drive the students to the right pathway so they're not wasting their time and money going through their program. And so that was kind of the first thought, is let's just do this for early careers in universities. But as I said earlier, it kind of took a whole different track when I said, we started launching the technology for a totally different problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll say selfishly, Caitlin, I'm going on a college visit today. Not me. I'm done with school. I am not going back to school. My daughter, we're going to actually right after the recording, we're headed up and taking a 4-hour trek to go to Penn State. So, Penn State, we're not too far. She has no clue what she wants to do. I might have her call you and do whatever you do to figure out what she can do in life, because
have her take her Plum profile. It's
take
amazing.
the Plum profile.
It doesn't matter if you're 20 or if you're 50. We think that we are self-aware when we are older in life. We aren't. And this
probably
really
more biased.
Yeah, this really is amazing to have objective data to really understand what motivates you. What do you value? What drives you and gives that sense of purpose and fulfillment in life? And on the flip side, what's draining? And I'm not saying you can't do the things that are draining. We all do things that are draining. But if you're spending 80% of your time in those activities that are draining, you're going to be miserable. You're not going to stay in that job. You're not going to be a top performer in that job. So when everybody's talking about we need to drive productivity and we need to drive retention, at the core, is that person living up to their potential, and are they getting to grow because they're using what makes them exceptional? And it's science. Like, that's the crazy thing about this. There's science. There's decades of science. What Plum has been able to do is just make it accessible and make it so that an individual can understand and utilize their data as an individual. Like, we've democratized access to this science and put it in the hands of people. But it's amazing how, we can get so wrapped up in inferring of perishable skills and quantifying every single coding course that we've done, but not looked at the heart of, like, is that like paying attention to detail and like writing really clean code and not making a mistake? Like, is that even something that really motivates you and gets you out of bed in the morning? I don't care how many languages you know, but like, is that even a fundamental thing? Or, would you be much better interacting with a large group of people and talking all day and, solving for problems and communicating and coming up with out of the box ideas? Anyway, my soapbox moment. Keep going.
Well, no, I wanted to tie it back to something Melissa said earlier in terms of, like, when you opened up your aperture as to where you would apply, where you would think this would apply. Did it also, because everyone's taken the test, does it also open to you to more candidates in the sense of people that would have probably not applied? That maybe they don't have a bachelor's degree or whatever the bid is, they wouldn't have applied, but if they take the test, all of it says, yeah, they'd be an all-star for this. Does it kind of help you start to rank the people you should talk to first?
I want to say it's a ranking methodology, but yes, there is a way that you can calibrate the system to align to certain roles and profiles that you as an organization wanted to define and understand. And I think that's where we took Plum on a different track. When Caitlin and I first started talking about it, she said, let's do this. Let's connect. Let's see how we can help each other out. And she brought a few members of her team to certain calls, and they kind of introduced me to the technology like you normally would with a vendor. This is how it works. This is how we built it. This is where it sits in your platform. And I think for Plum, a lot of the use cases were it's something that an applicant would leverage after they're done applying for the position within your organization. So to your point, if they complete the assessment, you can see if they're a good match for the job that they applied to. And that is typically how you would see a lot of assessments delivered in talent acquisition or recruiting. But as we continued our conversations, that's when kind of this light bulb went on and said, if we use it for this other project, Project Equinox, where the community needs support coming into healthcare because many of them don't have the education background needed to become a doctor and nurse. But we said, there are other jobs you can do in healthcare. And so we said, is there a possibility, Caitlin, that we put the assessment outside of our applicant tracking system? So we're introducing this technology to people that we're talking to in the community before they even had become an applicant. And I think that really kind of changed the lens and the landscape of where we could leverage this. Great for those students in early careers, but now we have a platform and a technology that we can bring to the community. And we can say, I know you don't know a lot about healthcare or organization. Let's see, just take the assessment. Let's see where it places you. Let's see what your drainers and your drivers are. And let's see if there is a match to a role that doesn't require a lot of education, license, or certification. A job that we could offer you and hire you in the next couple of weeks, and you could start working for us immediately. And then obviously, as an organization, we have other means to help you through any future educational tracks if you want, tuition reimbursement, loan forgiveness, all those other kind of mechanisms in in-house training programs that we have. So we really wanted to use this technology as an introduction to healthcare, not a confirmation that you belong in healthcare. And I think that's the flip and the switch with the technology in Plum.
I love that, Melissa. Caitlin, one of the as Melissa is telling this story, I couldn't help but think about consumers that love their brands. Like Nikes. You wear Nikes. A lot of people would love to work for Nike just to say I work for Nike. I kind of got that vibe, Melissa, as you were sharing this story, right? Like maybe I really like healthcare, but I have no background in healthcare, but now I can. So my question, Caitlin, for you is, do you see other brands, consumer brands, or other customers that you have leveraging it similarly to how Melissa is, and maybe moving consumers into the actual wanting to work for the brand, who maybe previously thought it would be cool to work for the brand, but doesn't have the background?
Yeah, the case study that Melissa heard us present at CXR in Napa was specifically the Scotiabank case study, where they used to only hire from 5 elite universities, and they only hired business and finance graduates. So they were interviewing the same small pool of candidates. They're interviewing the exact same pool of candidates that all the other banks and consulting firms were interviewing, and when they went to offer, they kept losing out to the highest paying bidder. But when they used Plum, they eliminated resumes. They opened up their aperture and said, we don't care what school, what program, apply with your Plum profile. And then somebody who's maybe a 35 match to be a financial analyst is a 95 match for commercial banking. So it allows them to have a conversation and say, hey, you may never have even thought about commercial banking, but because of your communication and your decision-making and your innovation execution, you'd be a great fit. And what that did is they increased their hiring of underrepresented minorities to 60%. They doubled retention. They're no longer hiring from 5 universities. They're hiring from 33 different organizations. And so we see that time and time again. And it's that idea that, where are the opportunities where you're looking for that potential? You're looking for that long-term performance and retention. Because if those are what matters, that past experience and education are not predictors of success. They can tell you if somebody can hit the ground running, but not if they'll do a great job, and not if they'll be there after you make that investment in them. So we see organizations that are recognizing, especially with AI, the value of a clean slate, the value of potential, the value of bringing in people that weren't part of their talent pool and giving them the opportunity. And as Melissa was talking about, once they're in the door, the opportunity to upskill them, their loyalty, their commitment to keep growing with your organization because you gave them an opportunity is a huge asset that companies are missing out on.
I think that happens in a lot of low-income areas. Isn't that they're thinking about an industry like we do, especially on the hourly front. They're looking at Walmart and Chick-fil-A and Verizon and, all of these different players as kind of the same, even though obviously they're in different industries, food service, retail, or whatever. So they're actually, I've worked with the homeless long enough to know they're not thinking about industries. They're just thinking about how do I get something and then leverage that something into something else. What I love about Plum is it basically opens up that aperture to who are you and where do you thrive? And then it starts to sort for where in a company that might be. Instead of letting a human go, I wonder where I'd fit best. which has been flawed forever, right?
There's also that confidence. Hey, I'm asking you to not take the job at Chick-fil-A and to come into an organization that maybe you haven't seen yourself as part of in the past and come into an industry. There's that fear of, am I going to like this? Am I going to perform well? Is this going to work for me? So being able to say, hey, you're actually a good fit. You're actually somebody we want to invest in, like that ability to confirm back that this is worth your time and energy and this is going to work out for you.
Yeah. That's life-changing for a lot of people, especially that hadn't given certain paths, thought at all. It's just all of a sudden it opens up so many doors and so many different opportunities. So, Melissa, something I wanted to ask you was, without any bloody details, we don't want to know names and places and things like that, but how'd you sell this internally?
So Project Equinox is a really great opportunity for us to kind of sit down and say, what can we do? Sky's the limits. First thing you always ask is after that call and everybody's energized and you kind of say, okay, let's put our hats together and, what can we do? The first question is, what's our budget? Like, how much money do we have to spend? And the response was, don't set a budget. Don't set a limit. Like, really just let your mind wander, be innovative, think about the different opportunities. So Plum was a single component. It was one of the pillars of like a 3-prong approach that I had for recruiting talent. So we said, all right, we're going to buy a van. That van's going to go out into the community. It's going to be a mobile recruitment van on wheels. It's going to be equipped with the Plum technology and VR technology. And this way we can bring what we deliver in a hospital out to the community where people are. And we can introduce them to their drivers and trainers with Plum, see if there's a match for these entry-level roles. And then if there are individuals who are on a career path and they are in school working towards their degree program, we can also give them an insight with the VR technology into what a day in the life would be, like a shadowing event via the VR, without having to come to the hospital and really say, like, yes, that's really amazing. That's the kind of work I want to do.
This is that moment in the conversation where it's, you either can stand blood
or you can't. Yeah, you can't. Yeah. We're not going to bring you into the hospital so you can fade. You do it here in the truck.
But again, it's a nice kind of, there is a point in which you have to be, no matter where probably 80% of the people that work at a hospital at some point see blood.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Melissa, I love this mobile recruitment idea.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a lot of companies are doing it.
Smart.
And I certainly don't want to give away the billboard if they're not. However, that's a wonderful use of this. And I could see this in Caitlin. I don't know if this is something you guys would get into or, maybe school districts, but going into tech schools or going into, high schools where the seniors are now starting to apply with a mobile like gaming unit, right? And they can see 20 different, instead of a job fair, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have been to job fairs recently in high schools. It is the most abysmal, sad thing in the world.
Horrible.
And the college fairs are no better. Like they literally, it hasn't changed in 30 plus years. Like they're sitting behind a table with a cloth. And it's a sorry sap who's been there for like 6 months trying to it's awful.
Usually it's alumni, Ronnie. And usually those things are staffed not by Harvard or Yale or whomever. They're staffed by
alumni or it's like
alumni.
I don't know. Yeah. It was useless. But I could see like a big gaming console, like a big gaming truck outside, lines of students coming in. You got healthcare, manufacturing, mining, whatever, running through VR. And going through the Plum assessment. I can see that being super helpful in these situations.
For the kids, like Melissa said it a second ago, they actually get something too.
Yeah.
So while, yes, you're trying to figure out, hey, do they fit somewhere and where we're hiring, but also they get something on the other end of that. Go, I've never even thought about that.
Yeah. Caitlin, do you sell into school districts?
So we have some universities that will use us as part of their, career coursing, and things like that. Typically, those are through partnerships where they're already having those relationships. Right. But the thing that is unique about Plum is that everybody that takes a Plum profile, it's their data. It stays with them throughout their career. Right. They're the first stakeholder there that we're trying to provide value to is that individual. It's not transactional. It's not like, hey, we're going to judge you based on this. It's genuinely giving them value and insights and data to help them promote themselves. And, but it's, and they're giving permission to the first employer, second, third, fourth to use that data over and over again. So they don't have to retake different assessments for different jobs. So it is something that's valuable. It's something that, your kid going in university can take right off of our website at no cost.
Yeah.
Like we don't make money. Yeah, we don't make money from the individual. It's the companies that want to see this data that ultimately pay for it. But the ones that we're trying to provide value to are those candidates and those employees. And that's where we're always blown away to hear how this makes a difference. This helps them really guide their career and open doors and take chances with their career that they may not have done before.
Yeah, I'm going to force her to take it because I know she's going to give me, I don't want this stuff. I'm going to force her to do it, and then I'm going to have her talk to the camera and tell me what it was like because I feel like she needs to document some of this. I think you guys can replace college career counselors in high schools because they're just awful. But Caitlin, question I have for you, instead of just bashing college career guidance counselors because I know they have a tough job. What are the questions that people need to ask you, or what are the questions they should have in their minds as they're talking to you?
I mean, it depends on where they're at. I love what Melissa did, which said, what is one of the most important problems that we need to solve? And, it impacts lives. And that's a meaningful job for people. And there are people that would absolutely want to be part of that solution versus working at Chick-fil-A. And I think asking the question of how do we include more people into solving that problem? How do we look at that on-ramp into our organization? I think people get really wrapped up in things like how quickly can I schedule them and get them started? Not, is this actually a good investment for both the person joining our organization who's going to be an ambassador to, others to say, hey, this was actually the best career move. Come and join me and bring their friends along. Or, is this going to be a really bad experience for both parties? So I just think we have a really unique opportunity at this point in history where I know that a lot of entry-level jobs are being eliminated right now because there's this idea that, we can replace people because it's at the entry level because it's repetitive tasks. It's repeatable. It's low level. So, we'll just have AI do those jobs. We don't need to hire entry-level people. My prediction is give it a few years and all of a sudden employers are going to be like, wait a second, why am I paying this person $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 when I can take somebody fresh in their career and I don't have to reteach them how to use or think about things differently. I can train them from scratch. I think there's such an opportunity to train people on the job. That time to learn is so short now. That barrier to entry to learn is so short. So I just think that I know that after COVID, we talked a lot about wanting to support people and wanting to support people's potential, but it's been so easy in the last 2 years with a harder economy for us to see people as cost centers again and to see them as cogs in the machine and to just lean really heavily into efficiency and automation. But I actually think this is the most important time to be doubling down on potential and doubling down on those on-ramps into our organization and figuring out how do we bring in the right potential and then train them on the job. And I think Melissa really was bold in thinking outside the box, but at the core, she had a really important, problem that changes lives. And I mean, that's why I've been doing this for 13 years and trying to disrupt a legacy industry is because I truly believe that we should all be striving to match people to the work where they can make the biggest impact. And there's no greater impact than what Melissa's talking about. So just really getting away from the me too, what is everybody else doing, what is everybody else implementing, and getting to the core of how do we place people into jobs where they're going to be set up for success for themselves and for the organization. And that definition of success, if you look at the science, has to do with the behavioral match. You know, if you need somebody that's going to be adopting innovation, and then you want to take the most innovative person from the pack. If you want somebody who's going to build trust in the community and go into those community centers to talk to them, to just make them feel comfortable to seek out support, then you want somebody who's really strong at embracing diversity and really great at communicating, and they're just naturally empathetic and they care about people. You know, like that's what drives them. And so, you know, you don't have to have a bachelor's in order to care about people and build trust and make them feel comfortable. So we've got to get back to understanding that behaviors are what makes somebody exceptional in their job, and the rest you can train.
For sure. I think we had a candidate who we had to take the assessment, and it really aligned, the assessment plan aligned with kind of her background, right? Like this was her first time in the role in which we hired her into, but her previous experiences kind of aligned to that. It felt like a natural fit. But what was great about the assessment was it reinforced that she was on the right path. I think that for her was like that validation of, this is what I've done because I've liked to do it. Maybe it was like how it fell in her lap. And, you know, sometimes we don't choose where we go. You know, we just ride that journey of life. And for this candidate, she took a chance. We met her at a community event, and we said, take the assessment. She said, sure. And it aligned naturally to one of our jobs. And we were like, let's get you in front of this hiring leader. Let's see if you both think this is the right next step for you. And for both of them, it was like, absolutely, like this is a perfect match. And so it's that validation that I am doing the right thing. This is the role that fits and is suited for me. And I think that was what was so amazing to kind of see it in action.
Yeah, Melissa, I know we're coming up on time here, so I'll do one final question from you, I promise. I don't know if you have a number, percentage, but maybe you can describe how often are you finding that you may not have actually looked at a candidate for a job in the community, but you found them, you filled the role with somebody who wasn't even looking, didn't know they had an interest, and then the tenure that they hold over, I don't want to say traditional hire, but hiring the old way prior to Plum?
I don't have a percentage. We have lots of stories. And I think that's what drives me, right? Is listening to the individual stories of people who have said, I've always been in your four walls. I've had care in your four walls. My mother, my father, my aunt, my uncle, whoever it may have been on these floors. But never did I once think that I was one person who could wear that badge. And so for them to get an opportunity to work in our spaces, there is a sense of loyal and commitment that has been earned. And we have so many other programs that once you become, we call them teammates. So once you become a teammate with our organization, we're wrapping our arms around you and we're going to help you be successful. And we're going to put you on that career journey and pathway to ensure that retention. But I mean, we have over 200 candidates in our Plum assessment technology. I mean, we're constantly having conversations with them, and we've only utilized it at 2 major events. I mean, it was huge success. Everybody was like, yes, I want this information. There was a lady who said, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with my life. My husband just passed away. My life is kind of turned upside down. I don't know where my next step is. And so there was a touching moment between the recruiter and the candidate having a great conversation, wrapping each other's arms around her and just making sure she felt okay in the moment. But then after that, it was like, let's take this assessment. Let's see what this tells you your next journey and your next pathway should be. And so that was a really cool moment as well, just to kind of hear those different stories. But we have so many candidates that have an opportunity to come now and matched. So now they have an opportunity to come into our organization in some of these early career positions, and grow with us. So we've only had Plum since 2024, so only a year. And over that course of a year, 200 different candidates, or over 200 candidates, that are community members to talk to and introduce into our organization. They weren't applicants before.
Drops mic, walks off stage. Melissa, Caitlin, y'all have been wonderful. I think this is actually the new format for the use case going forward. I'm digging
it. Yeah, I'm digging it.
I like being able to ask y'all different questions. So,
well, that's assuming the practitioner can be as great as Melissa has.
There you go. It's a high bar.